I feel like I hope at least the start of the race on Sunday, we as drivers will be, I can't speak for everybody, but have at least like half a brain and not make fool of ourselves the first lap or two.
Chicago's kind of coming up quick here. I know you got another race in between, but what was your first reaction to hearing that NASCAR was coming to Chicago and not to Chicagoland Speedway like it's been in the past? Like you're on the streets of Chicago. What was your first reaction?
Yeah, I didn't really know what to think, to be honest with you. I was sad initially when we stopped going to Chicagoland, a couple years ago. I thought that was a great racetrack and it always put on good shows. So I was disappointed we, don't have that on the schedule anymore. But then when they announced the street race, we heard rumblings about it for a couple years, kind of rumors, and you don't know how true the rumors are. But when we finally got the green light, I don't know. I was pretty excited for it because we haven't done anything like that before. Part of me is nervous because we've never been to a street course before, and I don't know how it's going to race. But I think it's going to be a hell of an event. I think it's going to be really good for our sport. I think it's going to be fun for the city of Chicago. Hopefully people really enjoy us coming there. I think we're going to get a good crowd, but yeah, I was looking forward to it. I think it's going to be fun. It's hard to believe we're only, a couple weeks away here from doing that and, seeing how it goes. So it's just nice to be back in, the state of Illinois and let alone be racing around the streets of Chicago. That's pretty cool too.
And a lot of these tracks you guys go to, they're out of the metropolitan centers. You kind of the fans have to come to the race. Now you're bringing the race to the people. People can watch from their balconies, from their apartments. It's going to be quite a scene. But what can something like that on a huge stage do for the sport, for NASCAR itself?
Yeah, I feel like some of it, I feel like most people, maybe half the people that are going to attend or watch it have maybe never been to a NASCAR race before, just a different kind of area. Like you said, it's, most of the tracks are kind of out of the major cities and stuff like that. And, so I think it'll draw a different eye possibly, which is good, and I've always told people, who've never, kind of watched NASCAR too much. I'm like, well, you got to go to a race. It's completely different in person. You'll have a completely different perspective on it. And I think this will bring that perspective to a lot of people, which will be cool. I'm excited to talk and hear the reaction during the weekend, post weekend of what everyone thought of it. So yeah, I think it's cool. Other series do it. IndyCar does it. F1 does it. They have their remote racetracks, but then they have some that are street circuits and kind of in the city. And I think it really is cool. So I think it's time that we've done something like this. It's a little bit out of our norm, but norm doesn't really do it anymore for everybody. So you have to switch stuff up. So I honestly, I applaud NASCAR for wanting to try something like this. I mean, why not? If it's not good, it's not good and we won't do it, but anymore, but it's going to be a fun weekend regardless here in a couple of weeks. And I can't wait for it.
You mentioned earlier some of the unknowns and people coming for the first time. They're not going to see a traditional NASCAR race. Obviously there's bumps, there's pavement, there's manholes, there's covers. Anyway, they're not open manholes, manhole covers, elevation change even in the track, 90-degree turns after a long straightaway on Lakeshore Drive. What's your level of prep? What's your level of confidence with the track right now? I know you guys are in the sims, or at least your crews are in the sims, kind of looking at this new layout that's much different from really anything a lot of you have done before. But what's the level of uncertainty and how that's playing into the prep that you and your team are working on for this race?
Yeah, we've done some sim work, here in Concord at the Ford simulators, a couple weeks ago. I'll jump in it again next week, right before we go to the racetrack. But yeah, the sims are great, but you just never know, okay, how consistent are they, especially at a place where you've never raced on before, right? There's only so much that the scan can do to try to give you all the feels. So it definitely helps go into the sim of kind of getting some visual stuff down, bumps here and there. Now, maybe some bumps in real life are larger or smaller than the sim, you never know. And then we kind of work on that after we go there once. You're like, okay, we have a big debrief of let's change this up in the sim because it's a little bit different in real life. So that's the most prep work we can do. I mean, we'll walk the track and stuff before practice the day before, but it's a lot different when you're going, 180 miles an hour as opposed to walking it at 2 miles an hour. So, it's kind of one of those things to where as a driver, you have to be really open-minded, especially going to a place like this, and kind of be willing to change up your approach or your driving style, because it's a completely different racetrack than what you're used to. So I've tried to keep that in my head of being open to, whatever kind of throws at you. But yeah, a lot of long straightaways into tight 90-degree corners. The racetrack is pretty narrow. I wouldn't say it's as narrow as I initially thought it was going to be, but it's still pretty narrow. Not a ton of runoffs. The only thing I would have liked to see different is some runoffs in those 90-degree corners. If you overshoot one, you have a kind of a bailout place. So I think you'll see guys kind of hesitant at some of those corners to begin with, but once you get more confident in it, you'll be going pretty good. So, but yeah, just all the prep work you can do. We try to utilize all the tools, and you hope they work the best for you.
Can you tell us how different the engineering part of your car is going to be, if at all, for this race? Are you going to be a little higher, lower to the ground, different tires? Like, do you have any plans that are different for this race on the street, in opposition to, just one of your normal tracks you're on every weekend?
Yeah, we even at road courses, other road courses, traditional ones, we run the car still pretty low to the ground. I mean, the cars usually bottom out on the surface of the racetracks, and that's where your car is the fastest. The lower you can get, the faster you're going to go. And this place, I feel like everyone's going to be starting at least pretty conservative, higher off the ground, just because you don't know how big the bumps are. The last thing you want to do is be too aggressively, low and go out there for the first run and bottom out like crazy and wreck, because you kind of overshot it. So I feel like some guys are going to be pretty, I feel like most of us are going to be a little higher than we want to be, and kind of work your way down as you get more positive or a little bit more confident. So I think that'll be a little bit different than, let's say, where we were at, like Sonoma a couple of weeks ago. You're comfortable with your heights and hitting the racetrack there because the track. We've been there a lot of times. What bumps are bigger, what areas of the track you're going to be kind of hitting the racetrack. Here, you just not sure. So I think it'll take some time, just like us drivers, getting comfortable with the track. It's going to take some time for the engineering and crew chiefs to kind of get comfortable with where we want to set up with the race car.
How is this going to play when everyone's on the track and it's not just practice?
Well, that's the different part of it, right? I mean, in practice, you're going to be by yourself, right? You're not going to want to get in a big crowd in practice. And, but then when they drop the green flag, you got 40 cars lined up nose to tail, and that kind of changes up your flow of how you drive the track. If you have someone pressuring you drive it a little bit differently than if you were by yourself. So I feel like, yeah, that stuff changes, but that's with every race. I mean, you always practice by yourself, and then the race, you just are comfortable around other cars, and you understand racecraft and kind of, how to put your car in different positions. So depending on the scenario. So, but it is a little bit different when you have a tight street course. So I feel like, I hope at least the start of the race on Sunday, we as drivers will be, I can't speak for everybody, but have at least like half a brain and not make fool of ourselves the first lap or two. But we'll find that out. It's just kind of hard to tell of how everyone's mindset's going to be when we get going on Sunday.
Just as the race is in the city, that means the drivers get to be in the city a little more now too. You looking forward to being in and around downtown Chicago? And what, something we're asking everybody, do you know what your post-race meal is going to be? A lot of good food options in downtown Chicago.
Yeah, I haven't been to, I think the last time I was in Chicago, was, I feel like 2018, 2019, I threw a pitch out at Wrigley Field for a Cubs game. And that was super cool to be able to stay for the Cubs game and kind of get a cool understanding of like Wrigleyville. That little area was super cool. I love that little area. And I had a blast at the Cubs game. And, so that's the last time I've been there. So I'm excited to see, I'm going to be honest with you, I don't know where the stadium is compared to where the field is compared to where like the racetrack is. I don't know. I don't have a good idea of the geography of Chicago, but I'm taking food options. I'm taking, food advice. I don't know the good places around Chicago. So I'm going to have to ask around what I should get throughout the weekend. And then, yeah, definitely a post-race meal. So I'm sure it's going to be easy to find something good. Like you said, Chicago is known for some good stuff.